Hey you folks, Quill18 here, and welcome to a new Let's Play for Hearts of Iron 3! Once again, I'm going to be playing with all the expansions, Semper Fi for the Motherland, and their finest hour, as far as I know, patched to the latest version. I believe, yeah, I'm playing the Steam version here, if it matters to anyone else trying to get things set up. So, the last and only real full playthrough of Hearts of Iron that I did as the Soviet Union, which was pretty comfortable approaching. I had played a test game as the Soviets before, and was very happy with how it went. And in fact, I did better in the test game than the actual video. I think in the test game, I produced a lot more goods. Also, I dramatically simplified the theaters on the Western Front, and I think that was actually better. I just wanted to try something different in the video, and I think it was a little bit more cumbersome, and certainly I didn't produce enough industrial capacity to really be able to properly execute a war as a Soviet Union, but we won anyway, so that's great. So, now the question is, what are we going to play next? We got a lot of requests for a lot of different things, and certainly I think I'm going to try to play something quite different from the Soviets. In particular, one thing with the Soviet Union is you don't have to worry about a navy at all, which suits me fine because I find naval stuff a bit confusing, plus a little bit more tedious, I guess, to set the missions, because you have to set all these missions and things like that instead of just putting a bunch of people on the front line. But I'm going to give it a go this time, and we are indeed going to play something very different. We're going to try to play as the USA. Now, the problem with the USA is that they start off with just a staggering amount of neutrality. And as of the latest expansion and everything like that, no simple and trivial way to reduce it, as far as I know. I think the go-to thing used to do, and is still present on many of the wikis, for example, is to use spies to lower neutrality in your own country, or something like that. Except you can't do that. We can see that our neutrality is 100 on the espionage screen, but that's it. We can only counter espionage, support our ruling party, which isn't really particularly much of an issue, and raise national unity, which, I mean, I guess is fine, but none of those things is lowering neutrality. And until we lower neutrality enough, we won't be able to use a lot of the laws that are really going to be pro-war, and in particular, we're not going to be able to join the Allies. And we're just going to be watching other people fight. I did load up a little bit of a test game to try to get a sense of how things went, and mostly just, like, ran the game on speed 5 to see what kind of events would happen, while building up a bunch of stuff that I, like, landed in Hawaii. And there was never any Pearl Harbor. Japan literally never attacked. I played until the end of 1942, and there was still no attack, and as far as I could tell, there was no way for me to join in the war, because my neutrality was higher than the biggest threat, which at the time was Germany. I was like, well, that's kind of annoying. Maybe I didn't do enough, I could have done more offensive espionage to raise the threat of Germany and Japan, and I'm certainly going to try to do that to see if it helps to guarantee things a little bit more. I mean, obviously, if I get, you know, the Day of Infamy over here, then we're clearly going to get dragged into the war. But otherwise, as long as I get the threat of a country up above my neutrality, then that'll be good. My neutrality will drop over time due to a variety of story-based events. So let's hope. Otherwise, it's going to be a real boring Let's Play. To start off with, what does the USA have? Well, the USA has a crap ton of leadership. It is just amazing amounts of leadership, which means, especially since it's not really going to need to do a lot of diplomacy stuff, I don't think, you're going to end up researching things very, very quickly, which is nice. Although I'll certainly make sure we have enough espionage stuff going around. What I'm going to do with my diplomacy is I'm going to sit it at around maybe 1-ish. There we go, somewhere around there. Lock it in. We're going to do the standard things of bringing the officer count down to 0 and locking it there, because we don't need officers at the start of the war, and our current laws, in terms of like the volunteer army, means that we really don't get a lot of officer bang for our buck, so it'd be a bit wasted right now. So we're going to leave it at 0. It'll decay for a while, up until we can enact some more powerful laws, and that'll be better. Espionage, I'm going to leave relatively high to start off with here, just to make sure to fill out all the espionage we want, because that is going to be one of the things we need to get started with. So, clearly, top priority is going to be our own defensive spies, and they're just going to be doing counter-espionage, and that's good. Second priority will just be Germany. I'm going to bring it down, so it's going to be a number 2 priority, and I'm going to have it increase threat, and I'll do the same thing in Japan. I don't know which one's going to end up being the highest threat for us, but we're going to just have that. So from day 1, we are going to start the propaganda that Germany and Japan are huge threats to the USA, and therefore we should gear up for war. You know, cross our fingers and hope that that sort of thing works, or, you know, that Pearl Harbor happens, which You know, some people believe, conspiracy theorists, that some people in the American government may have let Pearl Harbor happen as a way to convince the American people to join in the war. I'm not saying I believe that at all, but in this context of this game, we really do want that to happen so that we as the U.S. can join in the war as the allies and fight off those vicious, I'm trying to think of, like, Huns, right? Or is it just the Brits that referred to Germans as Huns? Which doesn't make any sense. They're not Huns. The Huns... Anyway, names for countries don't make any sense. But the Nazis, the Axis, and all them. Alright, so here we are in the US of A. What kind of holdings we have? Well, obviously we have the continental US of A over here. There's also Alaska, which we'll potentially ignore, although I suppose I don't want Japan to go and invade us over there. We've also got a variety of islands in the Pacific over here, most notably the Hawaiian chain of islands over here. This is Midway Island. This is Wake Island. We also control Guam over here. The Philippines are a puppet of the U.S., and there's probably some more stuff. I mean, there's another island here, Phoenix Island. I don't know if that might be too far to be relevant. I don't know. I mean, we may need a bit of a token garrison here. I'm not sure. But there we have it. Now, speaking of garrisons, we actually have a few troops kicking around. So if I grab... we've got 3 theaters to start off with. Actually, let's go into HQ mode and see them. So we've got the, I guess that's Continental U.S. East Theater, Continental U.S. West Theater, and then we've got the Pacific Theater, which includes Alaska and all of the islands. One thing that's annoying is I can't deploy troops directly to Pacific Theater, because you can only deploy troops to provinces that are directly connected via land to your capital. So I can never build troops over here. I can build them... the only thing I can do is build them on the coast and then transport them over, which is a little bit awkward. And I really don't know the correct overall strategy for, you know, how to play the U.S., how to deal with China. I think we're going to have to be a fair bit reactive, especially since I'm worried about overbuilding the Pacific and then never getting attacked, and that would be a little bit annoying. So let's take a look at the Pacific Theater over here. If I go and click and see all the divisions, we've got the HQ, which doesn't count, and then we've got 6 garrison divisions, although 2 of them are actually just single brigades over here. Now, is that enough? Just as a token guard to prevent a little bit of sea-based invasion? To start off with, maybe? Now, the problem with garrison troops is that they upgrade via militia weapons. They don't get affected by infantry weapons. So, I'm tempted, and in fact, I think this is exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to disband all garrison troops, because that way we can just ignore this entire branch of upgrades. Garrison troops are relatively cheap. They fight... Actually, they do fight basically as well as regular infantry. They just move very slowly. So they're perfectly well suited to defensive operations. But they would require me to upgrade their tech, and I'm going to try to avoid doing that. We do have a lot of leadership, but upgrading garrisons don't seem to make much sense. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll unselect the theater, and I'm actually going to disband all the garrisons. And I'm going to do that for the other theater as well. The Western Continental, which has no garrisons, and the Eastern Continental, which has a few things. Let me go ahead and deselect anything that is not a garrison. Actually, there might only be a couple of garrisons, so I think it might be quicker to go and disband it that way. Select everyone again. Select just you. Disband you. Disbanding them does put the troops back in the manpower pool. Unlike EU4, for example, your troops do go back. We've got a little bit of cavalry here. I don't think it makes any sense to keep these guys around. Ironically, though, we will be upgrading our cavalry. Just a bit, because we need it to unlock something. I don't remember what at this point, but I remember having to do that maybe. Okay, so now... Whoops, did I select that right? No. So now we only have proper infantry everywhere. We also have quite a bit of a navy. We can't... I guess we can see it from there, but it doesn't have it. The Eastern Theater... Yeah, if we go down low enough, or we just expand this, we can see the Navy. We've got quite a few things. We've got, yeah, a handful of different fleets, including... So these are battleships? Wow. Battleships in practice are the biggest, most badass ships that you will get. You can make a ship your pride? Yeah, neat. they're the biggest ships you tend to build. There is a super heavy battleship, but it suffers from a lack of upgrade options, so I don't think it's considered to be a really good pick. Historically, the Yamato in real life was a super heavy battleship, but I don't know how many other navies built super heavies. Battleships are very strong. Carriers are even stronger because they don't fight themselves, but the planes that they have are fantastically good at fighting naval battles in a variety of different ways. So that'll be pretty good. And of course, historically in the Pacific theater here, the USA made excellent use of aircraft carriers for a variety of different operations, naval warfare and as well as land invasions. So we'll probably look at that. I'll try to play relatively historical as much as possible. So at some point, we're going to have to reorganize these fleets and figure out what the hell everyone is going to do. Although for now, it's perfectly fine that they just stay docked. We do also have some more ships in queue. These are actually carrier air groups. So US Yorktown is a new carrier being developed, and these are planes that are going to be assigned to that. I'm going to go ahead and tell the sliders here to just automatically prioritize production, so I don't have to mess around with these things. What I'm going to do, I'm going to leave these things in the queue. We're going to need a lot of these ships. That's going to be fine. But I'm going to go and start on industrial capacity production to start off with. Try to get things a little bit kick-started. We're going to be producing a lot more industrial capacity than we did in the last game. Now, I don't know if there's any way to see what my base industrial capacity is. This is my current, my actual, right? If you total all these things up, it should come out to 153. But I have a penalty of 50% to my industrial capacity because of my economic laws. Because at least half of the factories, effectively, are being used for random, civilian goods. Outside of the civilian goods that I normally produce, right? So they're being used for other things as opposed to being completely brought under government control for the war effort. So I don't know what the base is, but presumably it's twice as much as this? Presumably I've got something like 300, and I'm going to have minus 50% to that and bring it down to here. There might be other modifiers, but yeah, I don't know where to actually see the raw stats. That would be very useful to have. Aha! Right over here. Base IC is actually 256. I've got 10% bonus because of a technology and minus 50% because of civilian. So presumably I'm currently rocking about minus 40%, assuming that these numbers are all additive. Okay, that is fine. Now, I don't know what I want to target. I don't know if there's a magic number there. I certainly want to build quite a bit. I would like to build probably at least another 100 industrial capacity. As the US, I think you have basically all the resources you'll ever need. I think more than anything, we're actually going to have a shortage of manpower from what I could tell, at least until maybe we can change some of our laws, but that'll be the biggest limiter. So I think we can go ahead and build a lot of industrial capacity. I will queue up a bunch here. I'm going to just queue up something like, so assuming I want to build 100, I could do something like build 20 in 5 serial runs. That might not be too bad. I suppose it could all be, like, I could just make a parallel run of 100. Because I don't think, if something's not being worked on, because when you finish construction, you get practical experience, which reduces the build cost and time of the next thing by a certain amount. But let's say I put in like 100 in queue, and I could only make, I don't know, 20 at a time. So the first one finishes, and then that 21st thing in the queue basically starts building. I think that 21st thing would get the benefit of the whole parallel construction, so I don't think the serial is required. It's just a way of maybe making it so we have a few other build options, but I'm going to be pretty happy with this. I'm going to set that up, and then I'm going to be able to distribute these basically wherever I want. Actually, with that in mind, hold on. Let me cancel a couple. Alright. Just brought it down a bit, because what I want to do is also set up some extra serial runs. Wherever I have anti-aircraft guns, even though there's not that many everywhere, that's where I'm going to want to build up my production. So I'm actually going to explicitly, is it Shift-I? Queue up, like, the full amount of industrial production here. Now, these are going to get put in as serial runs, which, again, is good for building industrial practical experience, but does mean that I'll get my IC a little bit later. But I'm going to set up a few of these here and there. And then the ones that get built in the queue, I'll actually have to place places. and I might place them just, you know, somewhere else random. So anyway, again, anywhere that there was already some anti-aircraft guns, we'll get that going. There we are. So now we actually have quite a bit of industrial capacity queued up. And a lot of them are serial runs, and a lot of them are not assigned anywhere yet, and I'm totally good with this kind of configuration. We're going to build a lot of factories and hope that that helps. In fact, I'm going to make sure to put all my industrial capacity at the top of the queue. So that will delay our ships from being completed, but I don't see a problem with that necessarily. So that's good. I don't think we're going to start building any divisions or anything quite yet. Yeah, we've just stripped the Pacific Bear, but I'm sure no one's going to attack us over there. Actually, let's leave it paused. Research. Okay. Let's queue up a few things as quickly as possible that is important. These guys will be 2 years ahead of time, but they're very important. Let's start with education, though. More leadership points are good. Where we want more agriculture, yeah, maybe I'll hold off on these just a bit. Maybe like halfway through the year, I'll queue them up, because then that should line up relatively well. There's no rush for radar detection equipment, but it's, you know, an efficient little technology to research now. We are going to want to research nukes as the U.S. I'm going to be definitely focusing on doing that. It's a little early to research a nuclear bomb right now. In fact, we don't even have the ability to do it because we need at least one nuclear reactor, and we need civil nuclear research tech to be at least level 4. And that's happening over here. We've already unlocked atomic research. Nuclear research is next, but it's a 1940 tech. Researching it now, I think would be kind of pointless. May as well wait a couple of years and then get started on it. But you will be researching this stuff pretty far ahead of time quite often. You can see it's a very high difficulty as well. You can reduce it with some theory, some nuclear theory, which may not be a terrible idea in this case. But I don't know. I don't know. All right, infantry. So, a couple of things. One, I'm going to want a mechanized infantry at some point. Mechanized infantry requires motorized infantry. Motorized infantry requires a certain degree of cavalry. So even though I plan on not using any cavalry, I'm actually going to go and queue this up so that we can start working in that direction, which is a little bit crazy, but there you go. I think we can skip all the militia upgrades completely. We're going to queue up the small arms. You can see how far behind we start on this. US was just like isolationist. I'm not going to any wars in Europe kind of thing. Tech is still at World War I level, so we're going to have to definitely queue that up. We'll also unlock the engineer brigades. That's a for sure. Tanks as well, we need to bring up. We need to bring everything up to level 2 to get to medium tanks. I didn't make use of self-propelled artillery brigades in the last game, and I may not again this one. It would require to bring the light tank tech up to level 3. And if we're not planning on using tanks, it's a little bit wasteful. I think I might just make use of rocket artillery this time around, as opposed to the Spart. Because I think we're going to do... I mean, we're going to use some tanks, obviously, certainly in Europe and if we get involved in Africa. But I'm really concerned about the Pacific front, and I think there it's mostly going to be using Marines to do naval invasions. So I will only bring these up to level 2 so they can get the medium tanks. And I think that will be good enough. Speaking of Marines, we can't queue them up yet. Okay, we got to bring our infantry up. That's okay. That'll be the same case for all of these. All right, ship-wise, we have to decide which ships we're going to use to fight this. We are going to need some in the Atlantic, although I sort of see like the Atlantic naval warfare as mostly being the responsibility of the UK. We are going to want to have a presence off our coast, protect our transports, or our convoy ships, and then later on, certainly our transports as well. We're going to be dropping off some troops in Europe. Historically, the US put a lot of troops in the UK, both I think as a defensive measure, but also for D-Day, they launched from the UK. They didn't go across the Atlantic. That would have been crazy stupid. So we are going to be moving some people there, so we do want to make sure to have a presence in the Atlantic so our transports are relatively safe. We actually have quite a few ships already on the eastern coast, I feel like, so it's probably not too bad unless Germany really goes ship crazy, but generally speaking, I don't think that'll be as much of a threat. So anyway, all that being said, definitely I would like to go carriers. Carriers are pretty badass in real life, but also in this game. So we've already unlocked aircraft carrier technology. We may as well go for these upgrades. I don't know if you need them all, but what the hell. Let's get the whole set over here. That's going to be fine. We're probably going to want some battleships as well. Right now, these are 2 years ahead. One of the problems, though, with battleships is... and most ships in general, is that they don't upgrade. It's not like if you research a new tech for infantry or for armor, your existing guys get upgraded. With ships, it's not the same. I don't think that you can upgrade engines or armor. I don't know if main armament can be upgraded, actually. I believe anti-aircraft can, so maybe the main armament can as well, and I think radar can as well. So pre-researching some of this stuff is a good idea, particularly I think the armor, because you want this done before you start queuing things up, and we want that before the war. So even though it's slightly unoptimal, I'm going to queue up the battleship armor, and there. And I'm going to use light cruisers as opposed to destroyers. Destroyers are really good at hunting subs, though. We do have a good number of destroyers already, although they'd be a bit obsolete. Destroyers are also very fast. I don't think we're going to do much in the way of subs. There was especially in the Pacific, a American submarine presence. And in particular, you know, starving out Japan by raiding their convoys is pretty powerful. That's tempting. Is there anything else that needed to be queued up before I forgot? I mean, certainly we want these, but it's not a rush. We may as well start it, though. Just anything that increases industry or research is really nice to queue up ahead of time. Mechanical computing machine will be one of those, but at this point it's 4 years ahead. That's a little bit too aggressive. I don't know. That's not too bad. We will want better bombers and fighters, but that's tech is too far ahead in both areas. Oh, let's, yeah, I'm going to use light cruisers as my screen for my heavier ships. So that's going to be okay. We might get some of this other stuff. I'll ignore the destroyer upgrades, I think. Yeah, it's probably okay. Let's get artillery upgrades going. That'll be really nice. These rest of them, anti-tank and anti-aircraft, I'll probably ignore. All right, 28 projects queued up. Right now, I'm only going to research 16, but I'm going to be bringing down the espionage relatively soon because it's going to be producing far more spies than we're actually going to deploy. Let's take a look at the politics screen. Susceptibility to Axis. I would prefer ruling party support, but what plus 5% threat impact? Does this mean whatever I do increases more threat? I mean, it's in red, so it's considered to be a penalty. So that's what I assume. This will make me look more threatening if things happen. But I shouldn't be doing threatening things. So I think that's okay. More resources is fine. But not critical. This would save us some IC. But the supply boost is also really nice as a way to save IC. Let's do that. Hoover over here with counter-espionage is probably what we want. Land intel. Political intel. Actually, I'd be happier with the naval intel, I think. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. What do we have right now? Naval base efficiency? Don't even know what that means, but whatever. I guess it's fine. Then everything else will be there. We do have elections every 48 months, every 4 years. And we can enact a more efficient law, but we don't have the money for it right now. Under diplomacy, I'm going to automate trade because trading is kind of annoying. Do I have points assigned to diplomacy? About 1. All right, that should hopefully be okay. All right, let's go ahead and unpause. Wait until we get a little bit of money, which we do have money coming in. And once we start doing some trades, that'll increase, well, assuming we're selling goods more than we're buying them. But there's the world. All right, we're going to go up to speed 4. There's going to be a lot of things going relatively fast for a long time here. Again, I'm not going to mess with my troops or my order of battle at this point. I have very few troops in general, so there wouldn't make much sense for me plotting things, and they're not going to be fighting right now anyway. So we may as well wait until we've got a more reasonable number of things just out there and ready to go. But yeah, organizing the Navy will be really interesting. In particular, like, what's the right number of stuffs? I don't know. Is there one here in Norfolk? I don't know what this naval base is. Is that Anderson CR? Is that the name of the base? I don't know. But yeah, quite a few things. So we've got a 12 transport ship fleet. which is just transports, okay. And then I think we've got another one of those 12 transport ship fleets on the Pacific coast. Yeah, right here. Any more ships anywhere else? Are they just all parked in that one naval base? Oh, no, we've got some more ships over here. 2 fleets. Cruiser, destroyer, destroyer. Heavy cruiser, destroyer, submarine. We could just merge these guys up for now and then figure out what we're going to do with them later on. Not particularly efficient set of ships. Actually, we'll probably end up doing the same thing here. Heck, I could leave out the transports, merge these guys together, and then make new units. So like a carrier with 1 battleship and... Well, actually, what we could do... One of the nice things, heavy cruisers are not quite as strong as battleships, but they move the same speed as carriers. We could do like a crazy carrier group. The Saratoga... Oh, wait. The Saratoga and the Lexington, a couple of heavy cruisers, and then some light cruisers as a screening element. Something like that. What does this give me for a total hull number? Well, there's 8 hulls, but each hull size, each point of hull size above 16 gives a penalty of 4%. So we haven't hit that. But what's the actual hull size of these guys? Where do you see that? Because battleships, I know, have a size of 4. I think. See, 69% stacking penalty. How do you tell what their hull size is? Hull 1.6 on this battleship? Oh, maybe. Thought it was bigger than that. Maybe the super heavies were 4. Maybe that's all I'm thinking of. So we want to minimize those stacking penalties. We could have sort of a submarine wolf pack separated from everyone else, which probably makes sense. Couple of battleships. Here. 3 battleships. Destroyers. Light cruisers. Positioning penalty listed as well. Doesn't have the hull size listed here, though. Right? That's really annoying. There's a 21% stacking penalty because of hull size, but it doesn't show you here when you're reorganizing. It tells me unit ratios. Yeah, so we're going to need some more screens for these fleets. And basically, I'll probably just split this fleet in half. Or not even half, but start off with something like that. And then get these guys some screens or something. I don't know. And we're still going at speed 4 at this point. We've got money for our laws, which was... What could we do? Specialist training. Yeah, which didn't matter too much to start off with. Specialist training takes longer to recruit troops, but they start with more experience, which is really good. But we're not building any troops yet. We're mostly working on producing our industrial capacity. Doing a lot of it in parallel. The first batch is really going to suffer from that because we don't have the practical, but I still want to get that rock and rolling as quickly as possible. We'll probably end up going to speed 5 very soon here. I think we've done it. We've got our spies in place. We actually are getting our excess of spies, so I can bring this down. I don't know where the sweet spot will be. Let's bring it down to around here, and then we'll revisit it, see if we get an obscene number of spies ahead or not. More research possible. Oh, right, because, yeah, I do. Actually, just barely have enough for the... one extra research going simultaneously here. Might want to do some sub stuff. Capital ship main armaments. There we go. Well, that's 2 years ahead. And the cruisers, I'm not planning on building any more heavy cruisers, I think. It's just going to be the battleships. Carriers. Light cruisers. I can always research some doctrines. Oh, have I not unlocked the basic fuel tanks here? Oh, I missed that. What about here? Okay, the fighters have it. The bombers didn't. Okay, so we definitely want to queue that up. All right, well, we're going to put a cut in here. Hopefully, this run of Hearts of Iron 3 as MURICA is going to do well. We'll see how it goes. Hopefully, we can raise the apparent threat of our enemies. Right now, our highest threat is Germany, and the threat is 0. So right now, that's not a great thing. But Germany hasn't started doing anything yet, and our spies are only just getting established. So we'll see how it goes. See you next time, folks. Bye-bye.